Okay, so here's the thing. A few weeks back, my school did a book fair event where you could just come in and take any book you wanted. And I took about 8 books with me, and I told myself I was going to read these books eventually. But it's been around 2 weeks, and I still haven't read them, and I have no intention to do so. And it's not because I'm not a big reader, I am. I just don't have that much interest in these books specifically. But I remember thinking that I did when I first picked them up because the covers themselves are pretty interesting. I mostly took mystery novels and anthropology books. So since I'm not using them currently, I thought, what the hell, I might as well make a video on why I chose these books in particular. So here's the concept. I'll make a review on every book based entirely on their overall appearance without actually reading them because, I haven't read them. And I have 6 categories to go off of. The first is cover, which basically means which cover I do think is the most interesting. Then there is genre, which genre I think is the most appealing to me personally, because I do have my favorites. Then there's synopsis, which story sounds the most interesting. Then there is length, if it's too long or too short. And then there is quality, which basically judges the book on whether or not it's in good condition. And then we have other, which is anything else I think is worth mentioning, good or bad. I will begin with the book, The Seed and the Sower. And I'll be honest, I chose this book due to its art style. The illustration makes the soldier look to exist in this post-apocalyptic world, which leads me to the synopsis of the book. It reads, war, experience in Africa, Java, Japan, but above all, experience in the soul of man. In these 3 long stories, Colonel Van der Post, explorer and soldier, probes behind the cliches of soldiering to show the effects of sustained and meaningless violence on the mind of one English officer. So this book seems to be a anthology / autobiography book, which explores the effects of war on people. And obviously that's definitely up my alley. And the length itself isn't that bad either. It's around 200 pages, which is easily doable in under a week. However, I do have to say the quality of the book itself isn't really that great. It's very worn down and broken. But on some level, it kind of helps the book because due to its genre, the broken cover seems to actually be part of the book's aesthetic itself, even though it isn't. For that reason, this book receives an average score on the ranking. The second book I chose is called The Scarlet Imposter, and I chose this book due to its striking cover art, which directly tells you what kind of book this is. The synopsis reads, The Scarlet Imposter is the first of 7 volumes, incorporating all the principal events which occurred between September 1939 and May of 1945, covering the activities of George Reese Salust, one of the most famous secret agents ever created in fiction about the Second World War. When George Reese landed in Germany early in 1940, his task was to contact an anti-Nazi organization ready to overthrow Hitler and sue for peace. Masquerading first as a German general and then as a SS Gruppenführer, the extreme danger and difficulties with which he was faced made him doubt that he would ever escape from Germany again, surrounded as he was by some of the most vicious and determined Nazis in the Third Reich. Now, of course, this book is fiction, obviously, which is always a plus in my book, and I've always really had a fascination with history itself, so this book definitely ranks highly for that. The length is a bit longer than I would like. For example, if it's a book that I'm not gripped by in the first 50 pages, reading the rest might be a bit of a hassle. And other than that, I do think that the art style is striking, but that's kind of it. There's nothing more to that. I think it could have definitely been utilized in a better way than this. But on the plus side, the quality is pretty good. I'm sorry, I just need to say this book will not be ranking that highly on my list. The third book is called Wake Up, Darling Corey, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of glad I didn't read this one because this cover art looks very boring. I mean, it's something, it looks like something, but it isn't much of anything, to be honest. The synopsis reads, a passionate environmentalist, Corey Benbow, was heading home after an angry encounter with her wealthy in-laws when her car went over a bluff into Stacky Bay. The Benbows were about to double-cross an environmental group and sell their valuable properties to a resort developer. Bookstore owner and private investigator Conan Flaggs is certain that Corey's death was no accident, but his only hope of providing it is a 36-year-old diary that has vanished, possibly into the Pacific Ocean, but more likely into the hands of someone connected with the pending multi-million-dollar land sale. Chipping away at the stone wall of the Benbow family solidarity, Conan finally arrives at the ugly truth of Corey's death, but only by a bold sleight of hand can he render justice in a haunting family affair of land grabbing, greed, and violence. Okay, so I'm reading this synopsis. I remember why I chose this book in the first place. It's because I kind of have a soft spot for mystery novels, and when I read it in the book fair, I thought, oh, it sounds interesting. But that's kind of it. I think that's the only thing gory for it right now. The cover art isn't that great. The synopsis tells us too much about the story itself. The length is average, and the quality is average too. There isn't much remarkable about this book, I'll be honest. For that reason, it's probably going to be the lowest ranking book on here. The fourth book is called African Stories, and I'll be honest, there is a bit of a story to this one. While I was at the book fair, I wanted to get a book about African culture because I wanted to learn more about my roots, essentially. And there was this one book I really wanted that I found, but someone else got to it first. So I had to look for some other books, and I found two others. I found one which is about African folklore, which I really liked, and then there's this book, which I guess I didn't read or look at long enough. I just read African Stories and that was it. Because this book doesn't seem to be about that. It seems to be about Doris Lessing, and it's about her experience living in Africa. Then again, the novel itself is around 600 pages, and I'm not reading 600 pages of a novel that I'm not even sure I like just to give it a fair shake. Okay, so I looked it up, and this book is in fact about Doris's experience living in Africa for 25 years, which involves her experience exploring African cultures and civilizations, which does sound very interesting to me. It is a topic I'd be really into. And for the most part, 600 pages for a book about cultures is something I'd actually really enjoy for the most part. Out of all the books I got, this one seems one of the most promising because it definitely dwells into something that I specifically went out of my way to look for, which was a book on African anthropology. So for that reason, I'll probably be giving this book a pretty high ranking, mid. This book's ranking depends definitely on how the other books compare to it. The next book I have is called The Widow's Club, and I'll be honest, I am very excited for this book. Simply due to the fact that it hits both the cover and genre category pretty well. The cover itself is very nice. It's very nice to look at. I love the glossy nature of it. It also has a very nice touch to it. And then the genre itself is a murder mystery, if I understand correctly. So I'll give you the quick plot synopsis. Meet Ellie Haskell, née Simons, thin woman, newlywed, potential murderess. Her life in charming Chitterton Falls promises nothing but endless bliss until she meets two of the most cunning and unlikely private eyes ever to track down a diabolical killer. Mrs. Hyakin and Primrose Trimwell of Flower Detention Agency have been called in by a major insurance company to investigate the deplorably high incident of sudden death among the married men of the picturesque municipality. The spinster sleuths soon discover that all the husbands have been unfaithful and their deaths nearly arranged by an enterprising social organization called the Widow's Club. But to find the mastermind behind this insidious ring, the Tramwells need an unhappy and betrayed wife. Enter Ellie, who will endanger life and husband to join the Widows Club and arrange to have her dearly beloved dead. This sounds like my kind of book. It sounds like a very 90s murder mystery about trying to discover the truth. Honestly, this book seems really, really amazing. The quality itself is really good. The length is pretty long as well, around, well, not that long, it just looks long. But to be honest, a long murder mystery is always welcome to me. And when it comes to others, I do have to say that the cover itself, the cover art is just amazing again. I love how it feels on my hand, and I love how it's still in very good quality as well. For that reason, this book will probably rank very high on my list. The next book is called The Deer Leap, and I'll be honest, it was this book that made me want to get books in the book fair in the first place. I loved the art style of the cover. I love how hand-drawn it looks, like very neat and nice. Again, another murder mystery, which is always great. I love those. So here's a quick plot synopsis. All roads lead to the village of Ashton Dean, the one that did lead writer Polly Preed right to the police station to be questioned about a corpse. Poor Polly admitted to opening a phone booth door, but the dead woman had fallen out quite on her own. Now Polly needed a phone again to call Melrose Plant and Scotland Yard Richard Jury for help. For something was rotten in Ashton Dean. Pets were missing, some had been found dead. 3 roads led away from the village. One led Plant and Jury to a sinister laboratory on the edge of town. Another to La Notre, a run-down mansion where an aging deranger lived with her mysterious teenage ward. But the third took them to the Deer Leap, a pub where they would discover a chilling old crime and a brand new way to die. This sounds pretty good actually, sounds pretty amazing. I love the art style again, I think it looks very neat and clean. The length is a bit short and the quality is a bit on the run down side, but overall it still looks pretty good to me. I'll be honest, the standout notion of this book is the synopsis itself. It's very intriguing and hooking, unlike the other books I read so far. So yeah, this book will also rank pretty highly for me. The final book is called Still Life with Crows, and it is the only horror book I picked up. The art style is intriguing, it's very minimalistic, but overall it's kind of unimpressive. It is simply a crow on a ledge, which is very meh. Now I'll read the synopsis for you. A small Kansas town has turned into a killing ground. Is it a serial killer, a man with a need to destroy? Or is it a darker force, a curse upon the land? Amid golden cornfield, FBI Special Agent Pendergast discovers evil in the blood of America's heartland. What makes this book stand out is its genre. It's the only horror book I picked up, and for that reason it's very exciting, and it's one of the only books that no matter what I'll probably maybe read in the future. Not now, obviously, I don't really care for it now, but if I'm ever bored, I might read it on like a Sunday night. Other than that, the rest is pretty average. The cover is pretty average. The synopsis is barely anything. The length is long but not too long, and the quality itself is just okay. I will say that the cover itself has a very nice texture to it too, so that is always a plus. And after careful consideration, the winner of the Judge by the Book by its Cover contest has to be The Widows Club. It's just amazing. It is everything I'm looking for in a book. The quality itself is a bit worn down, but I'm actually willing to look past that because everything else is pretty amazing. The genre, the synopsis, the plot, the cover itself, it's just pretty great. The others are pretty good as well. If I had to rank the top 3, it'd probably be Widows Club, The Deer Leap, and then Still Life with Crows. The rest are just, they're good, but they have their own faults to them. I'll probably be putting the rankings in the description if anyone's curious. But yeah. So I guess that is the end of me judging books I never even read in the first place. Well, To be honest, I might read these books someday, just not now. I just got them because they were free and they looked nice. And I do have other books I got from the library itself, which I find way more interesting, to be honest. So I'll probably stick with that. I will say, I do plan on reading more. I do plan on reading other books that I find more interesting. So, for example, I plan on reading Lord of the Rings soon. So I don't have much time to read these other books I got on a whim. But I might pick up The Widow's Club. Maybe. We'll see. If you enjoyed, do whatever you want, like, subscribe to your life. So yeah. Okay, bye.